Hello everybody, I'm SB, and I just wanted to do a little post-commentary recap of my first week of the Astercord Draft League 2. This week, I was going up against Matthais, who had an extremely scary team full of setup sweepers or just general sweepers like Roaring Moon, Gengar, and Slitherwing, paired with additional support from Pokemon like Whiscash, Arcanine, and Espeon. So going into this matchup, I knew that I wanted to do a bit more of a defensive playstyle that revolves around just trying to outwall his Pokemon and wear them down slowly. So with that in mind, I built my team around Dondozo, Moltres, and Muck. Both Dondozo and Moltres being heavily invested in physical defense for Arcanine, Rillaboom, Roaring Moon, and Whiscash. And Muck being built very specially defensive to take on a potential Espeon, and in this case, Gengar. Game 1, I led with Electrode into Arcanine, and my original idea was to eject pack Leaf Storm out on a potential Whiscash. However, Matt led Arcanine, which already activated my eject pack. So I go into Moltres, just because Moltres takes hits from Arcanine very well, and then he reveals Roar. Roar was something that I did not prepare for at all during testing, so that definitely caught me off guard, because Roar plus Whiscash is a very deadly combination, in the sense that you can set up Stealth Rocks, you can knock off Heavy Duty Boots with something like Rillaboom, and then you can just start spamming Roar with Arcanine. Because if you look at my team and you look at Arcanine, there are very few ways that I actually have to hit it. My Dondozo didn't have a water move this time around. I had Avalanche, Rest, and Sleep Talk, so that if I'm calling an attacking move with Sleep Talk, then it will always be Avalanche. So my main way of chipping down Arcanine was either by Toxic with Muck or with Earth Power from Iron Jugulis. So it goes into Electrode. Here I make a misplay by going hard into Moltres. I could have done a Volt Switch out instead to get a little bit of extra chip, but instead I just decided to hard switch into Moltres. I attempt to get a little bit more chip on Arcanine, but Whiscash comes in, and here I make another misplay. U-turn was always free against Whiscash because my Moltres was EV'd to outspeed, so I could have just U-turned out on Whiscash into TSAREENA. So he doubles into Gengar. My TSAREENA was here so that I could check the Whiscash by rapid spinning away hazards, but Gengar not only blocks the rapid spin from TSAREENA, but it also threatens it super effectively with Sludge Bomb. So this mon was very, very, very scary for me to deal with. However, I did have a trick up my sleeve with my TSAREENA that I could actually use to check this Gengar. So Matt goes for Thunderbolt here, revealing that he was Life Orb Gengar. Now, if he had gone for Sludge Bomb here just to attempt to get the KO on my TSAREENA, it definitely would have killed. I was preparing for something like Scarf Gengar because it outspeeds even Booster Energy Iron Jugulis. So yeah, I definitely got lucky that Matt tried to predict my Muck coming in, because what I was going for with my TSAREENA was Fling. And with an Adamant Nature, 188 attack EVs, I OHKO Gengar with flinging my Heavy Duty Boots. So instantly, I have just removed one of the biggest offensive threats on Matt's team. Right here, I stay in even on Air Slash, because if he had gone for if he had gone for Volt Switch, then I would have been able to U-turn out slower and reposition better. So I was okay with taking damage on my TSAREENA. Here, because I didn't have many switch-ins into Rotom, I was planning to just sacrifice Electrode for my Terrain and revenge with Jugulis. But instead, I get my Terrain up on Rillaboom, crit the Volt Switch, and seeing the Terra Rock, I didn't want to go Moltres in case it was Terra Rock, Terra Blast. So I go into my Dozo as a mid-ground because I didn't expect him to use a Grass move on my Electrode. So yeah, Knockoff comes out, which unfortunately knocks off my helmet, which is a little bit unfortunate, but it's not that big a deal, as I double into Jugulis. Getting Jugulis on Arcanine is very good because I get off important damage with Earth Power, and Flamethrower does just so much damage. This Arcanine has a lot of special attack investment. And here, since Dark Pulse killed from any range, that range, I didn't need to Earth Power because if Rotom came in, then I would just waste my Electric Terrain turns. So I Dark Pulse here, getting very huge damage on Rotom, and I just finish it off with a Dark Pulse. So immediately I'm up 6-4, which is a very good advantage because I still have my main sweeper. And in comes the threat, Roaring Moon. But I prepare for it with Unaware Dondozo, with Avalanche. And the idea behind Avalanche is that if Roaring Moon doesn't terrestrialize, stays a dragon type, if it turns into a flying type, or if it turns into a ground type, I can hit all three of those super effectively with Avalanche, compared to something like Body Press, which doesn't do anything to flying type Roaring Moon. Yeah, I definitely do think Avalanche was the right bring. Rillaboom does get in here, so I sack TSAREENA, because again, I still don't know if Matt has Terra Rock, Terra Blast, so I was perfectly fine with sacking TSAREENA. I still had Electrode around for Whiscash. Rillaboom was a rock type, so Electrode was looking very good. Arcanine weakened. I only needed one grass type at this point. I actually come in on Leech Seed though, revealing very interesting information, and U-turn finishes off TSAREENA. So Roaring Moon is back, and this time I go Muck, because Muck can put Roaring Moon on a timer, which is very useful because it doesn't force me to go into Dozo every single time with against Roaring Moon. Because if it's toxic, then I can sit in front of Roaring Moon with different Pokemon than Dozo. But generally speaking, I always, if Roaring Moon's out in the field, I always want to go Dozo, but it just speeds up the Dozo versus Roaring Moon interaction because he can't keep roosting off the damage. So Arcanine comes in here, and I wanted to Toxic it because it healing off so much damage with the leftovers in the terrain was a big problem. And on top of that, the next turn I go for Knockoff. It doesn't do much because of the Intimidate and the Burn, but removing the leftovers was all I needed, as Roar phased me out into Moltres. On the Whiscash here, I predict it and I U-turn out into Electrode, and now there are no more Leaf Storm switch-ins. Roaring Moon takes probably about 40% from that and the toxic damage, which is not something you want to do. Arcanine is low and poisoned, Rillaboom is a rock type, and Whiscash is quad weak. So my Electrode was very well positioned at this point, just to throw off a Leaf Storm. So Leaf Storm here, if I still had my Eject Pack, then I would get a free switch into something like Muck or Moltres. But instead, I can just Volt Switch out next turn into Moltres. And you can see just how much that Flamethrower is doing, 19%. That's because my Moltres is it's not invested at all in its special defense. It's just HP, defense, special attack, and speed. But Arcanine does fall to Toxic. And Rillaboom, I was just planning to sack Electrode here to get into Jugulus, but instead Knockoff doesn't do much because I already lost my item. And here I unfortunately miss a Leaf Storm, which would have done a lot of damage to Roaring Moon, but it's fine because I still have a very commanding 5-2 lead, and Roaring Moon is poisoned, so I'm in very good shape. Here I tried to deny setup by using Taunt, but he doubles, probably predicting a Dondozo. I instead of Leaf Storming here, I actually elected to set up Electric Terrain. And I do think that 10% of the time setting up Electric Terrain was the best choice, and 90% of the time just clicking Leaf Storm and trying to get a kill is the best choice. But the idea behind setting up Electric Terrain is that if I end up missing Leaf Storm and lose Electrode for nothing, then I'm not in a good place because Roaring Moon has a chance to outspeed my Jugulus and just finish it off, and then I'm not left with many ways that I can actually beat Rillaboom with. So instead I get up the Terrain, which activates my Jugulus's Quark Drive. With the Quark Drive active, then I'm faster than both of his Pokemon, and I could Revenge Kill. So I get more Aftermath damage on Rillaboom, and it can't keep coming in anymore. So I send in my Life Orb Jugulus, I get the speed boost, making me faster than Roaring Moon, Terraflying, Hurricane, and it misses. The miss is a little bit unfortunate because I would have won the game on the spot if I hit it, but Roaring Moon just sets up Dragon Dance, so not wanting to sack Jugulus, I just go hard Dozo, and the Unaware combined with the physical defense just makes it take nothing, and Rillaboom is too low to switch in on an Avalanche, and it falls. And at this point, Matt just doesn't have enough turns to be able to break my Dondozo before the toxic damage finishes it off. So I won that one 4-0, which was a very good start. Going into game 2, I knew that Matt would probably play more careful around TSAREENA and Dondozo. So I just wanted to lead Electrode again. Electrode is faster than his entire team and can just pivot around. It can taunt to deny anything annoying, like a nasty plot from Gengar or Dragon Dance from Roaring Moon. So I lead Electrode again into Gengar this time. Here I should have Volt switched out because Gengar revealed Life Orb earlier. I could have also Leaf Stormed with my Eject Pack to switch out into Muck, though Volt Switch was probably better because, as you'll see later, that chip on Gengar definitely would have mattered in speeding up the game. But at the end of the day, especially defensive Muck eats up that Life Orb Sludge Bomb, and I get a free knock. I don't have any hazards, the heavy duty boots doesn't matter, but that damage on Rotom is very important because it's slowly getting closer and closer to Jugulus Dark Pulse range, and I poison the Whiscash. So I was like, I'm in a very good position right now, but Matt actually reveals Rain Dance with Hydration, which is a bit annoying because Whiscash is no longer on a timer and it just keeps healing up with leftovers. Here I go for Fling again, trying to snipe the Gengar on a switch, but Matt makes a smart mid-ground play, just going into Rotom Fan instead of Gengar because it eats both the grass move and Fling. But even still, even though I didn't get the Gengar this time around, I still got very important damage on Rotom because now it's dead to Jugulus' Dark Pulse. So I was okay making that trade. I go hard Electrode here on Air Slash, which just does so much damage, and I get up my terrain before dying. And now Jugulus is in a very commanding position. I can just spam my moves. Dark Pulse finishes off Rotom, and I'm just faster than everything on his team. Hurricane here does 71%, meaning that the Terraflying Hurricane from last game would have definitely killed Roaring Moon. But Hurricane's Hurricane. I opted to run Hurricane over something like Terraflying Terra Blast, so it happens. But either way, Roaring Moon is very low at this point. So I just go Dozo here, Dragon Claw comes out, and it takes more chip with Rocky Helmet, which is huge. Here, I just Avalanche again because I want to deny Roaring Moon's recovery if it did have Roost. And I was pretty confident at this point that it wasn't Terra Rock, Terra Blast, and it was just purely defensive Terra Rock on Rillaboom. So I just opt to burn it, keep it on a timer so it can't just heal up forever with leftovers. Here, I roost up. I did lose a little bit of momentum by roosting here instead of U-turning, but I do think that keeping my Moltres healthy was good for trying to live for a long time. Here, I actually make a misplay by U-turning on the Roaring Moon. I was expecting the Gengar to come out, so I didn't want to just waste my turn and be in a bad defensive position. But if I had just attempted the spin, I would be in an extremely commanding position. But instead, Roaring Moon gets sacrificed, and I don't have much to go into. Leftovers heals me up a little bit, and here, instead of going for Toxic or Knockoff, I went for Protect, thinking that even if Roar happened, I'd be able to get Leftovers recovery, but Roar goes before Leftovers, so that was another misplay. And at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to start making plays if I want to not just choke away the 5-4 lead that I have right now. And Moltres coming in on rocks with no boots is very difficult. Thankfully, Arcanine just roars me out again, and I get back into Muck. So I'm in good position. I knock off here, get a very lucky Poison Touch, meaning that Arcanine is not only on a timer, but it also has no leftovers. Here, expecting the flamethrower, I just go into Dozo because Roaring Moon is down. I don't need Dozo for anything anymore, so I can just use it to sponge hits. Here, expecting liquidation, Matt goes for Will-O-Wisp, but I didn't have liquidation at all, so I just went for rest. If he roared, I got free recovery. If he went for anything else, then I would have healed off the damage. So I rest up here. I use Sleep Talk. I unfortunately call rest. That chip damage would have been good into Arcanine, but I don't think it ended up making that big of a difference because either way, I go back into Dozo. And against Gengar, I always go Muck. We were just dancing defensively at this point. Here I protect so I can get another tick of leftovers, and I see that he's going for knockoff. And because Gengar was still alive, I didn't want to lose my leftovers on Muck, so I decide I'll just go TSAREENA. And he actually Leech Seeds, which gets my TSAREENA in for free. And this was the point where I'm like, okay, if Gengar comes in, my Muck is still healthy, and I gain more most of the time out of just rapid spinning than trying to predict a Gengar. And as you can see, he goes for another knockoff, predicting me. So I get a free spin off, and then incoming, Grassy Terrain boosted offensive TSAREENA Dropkick does a frankly disgusting amount of damage to that very bulky Rillaboom, and I was like genuinely floored when I saw that damage because Dropkick is only 70 base power, but I guess TSAREENA is just her. That's all I can say. And U-turn -1 attack burn, it only does 17% to TSAREENA because she's her. That's just it. Again, with no rocks up, I lose nothing by going Muck here. And yeah, I'm back up to full with the leftovers. Here, Matt sacks Arcanine to get the Intimidate off so that he can live my knockoff. My Muck had a Careful Nature and only 4 attack EVs, so I don't think that knockoff would have killed. It was most likely a roll, but either way, I still got to knock off the leftovers, and you can see that if I had Volt Switch with my Electrode earlier, then Gengar would have died and I would have just won on the spot. But instead, my Muck takes a Thunderbolt, which unfortunately paras, but thankfully I break through, so no unfortunate paralyses finish me off. And Whiscash, there's not much that Whiscash can do. Whiscash sets up rocks, and he tries to sack Rillaboom, but I go for spin now, and now I'm guaranteed faster than Whiscash, and Grassy Terrain boosted TSAREENA Dropkick. There's no surviving that. So TSAREENA finishes it off. I win the second game 5-0, and I win the set 2-0 to get my first win in the Draft League. So this was an awesome set as an introduction to Draft League. I think that I had very good preparation going in, just with my Pokemon and with my planning, with, for example, my FLING TSAREENA, and my defensive walls. I'm glad that I made the choices that I did. And I'm also glad that I got to show them off. So super happy to be 1-0 right now, and I will see you next week for week 2 of the Astercord Draft League 2. Ciao for now.